Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and today I'm going to be talking about everything I read in January. It's been a bit of an odd reading month for me. My ratings kind of ended up a little bit all over the place, but I am happy about one thing, and that is that I finally got to some books that I've been meaning to read for a while now. First up, though, two rereads, and those are Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I know it hasn't been that long since I've read the series, but for some reason, I really felt like rereading it, so I thought, why not? Obviously, I don't need to tell you that these are pretty great, and if you are interested in audiobooks narrated by Jim Dale, those are an excellent choice as well. He does a fantastic job with the series. I will say that for some reason on this second read through, the humor is standing out more to me. I'm not sure why, and even though I remember what happens in these books pretty well between my recent rewatch of the movies and the fact that I read these books only a couple years ago, so it's not like any of the plot is a surprise to me. It hasn't been that long that I would have forgotten what happens. I am still thoroughly enjoying this reread, and it is very satisfying. I would still rate both of these books 4 out of 5 stars, and I am so looking forward to rereading the rest of the series because I know it only gets better from here. Also, I finished 2 books that I started back in December, and those are Krampus, the Yule Lord by Brom, and The 13th Tale by Diane Satterfield. Krampus in particular was very satisfying and fun to read around the holiday season for obvious reasons. I think I actually started reading this on Christmas Eve, if I remember correctly, and the whole spooky fantasy, almost horror thing is definitely right up my alley. In a way, this actually reminded me of Neil Gaiman's American Gods a little bit because of this whole old gods in the modern setting and modern beliefs thing. Plus, there is a Norse mythology angle to all of this, and there is a down on his luck protagonist in here that kind of gets roped into some crazy stuff. As you can tell, there are some similarities. It is unfair to compare this book to American Gods because this is not as complex or as elaborate as American Gods, so I would not compare the two, but I could not help but notice the similarities. First of all, I have to say I just loved this Krampus versus Santa thing that was going through the entire book. Also, of course, the Norse mythology. You guys know I love books that feature that. And Krampus as a character was definitely very interesting to read about. The author kind of gives him this anti-hero flair. So yeah, this was definitely up my alley. And the horror elements were done very, very well. Also, the art is absolutely worth mentioning. If you don't know, Brom is primarily a gothic fantasy artist, and this book includes some amazing illustrations. There is this beautiful character art section in the middle, plus the beginning of every chapter has these really cool black and white illustrations. Let me see if I can find one to show you. This type of thing at the start of every chapter. Let me see if I can find another. Here we go. But I really disliked the human characters in this book, and they are a pretty big part of the whole thing, so that was not a good thing. It's not that I didn't care for them or found them less interesting. No, I actually was actively annoyed with them most of the time. Also, the swearing. There is so much swearing in this novel. And I know people swear in real life, and obviously I'm sure most of you heard me swear from time to time. I'm not above this or anything, but this is on a whole different level, and there were some pages, quite a few actually, where the dialogue was just a barrage of profanity, and aside from this just being kind of unpleasant, it was distracting for me, so that was kind of a major problem. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars because even though I did enjoy certain portions of this novel and overall this was fun to read, I had some major issues. As for the 13th Tale, this book is definitely a gem for anyone looking to read a well-written family drama. Reading this novel was kind of like watching a puzzle come together slowly, and it is really really well done. It also has this story within a story element to it, and one of the characters is an enigmatic writer, so it's pretty much made for book lovers and particularly people who enjoy stories about storytelling. My favorite thing about the 13th Tale was definitely the writing style. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is so atmospheric, and you guys know how much I love atmospheric writing. And you just want to keep reading this book because it gives you that feeling of the story wrapping around you and just pulling you in. That's the kind of writing style that this is. So I will definitely be reading more Diane Satterfield in the future. But you knew there was a but coming, didn't you? The but is just that this isn't my kind of story. I was interested, as I mentioned, and I was enjoying it, but ultimately, this was not a book for me. I loved the way this was written, but this was just not the story that I was ever going to fall in love with. I completely understand why so many people love this book and why it has so many 5 out of 5 ratings. It's on so many people's all-time favorites lists, and I think if you're the kind of reader who would enjoy this story, you know you will enjoy it. I'm just not that reader, unfortunately. So don't kill me, but I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars as well, because even though I did like it and I did enjoy it, it was more about appreciating the author's mastery and her writing style rather than actually loving the story. Next, I finally read something that I absolutely loved, and that is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, and this is a short story collection. They are science fiction short stories, and they are so good. These are amazing. I don't know where have I been not reading this book. The reason I read this to begin with was because one of the stories, Story of Your Life, is what one of my favorite movies, Arrival, is based on. And obviously, as a biased reader, I have to say I ended up loving that one the most out of the entire collection. However, every single story in this collection is a gem, which in my experience is pretty rare for a short story collection. And this is the kind of sci-fi I need more of in my life. Through these very different stories, Ted Chiang explores the way we think as humans and tries to examine consciousness. In a way, this is a collection of what-if scenarios that gives the reader a chance to speculate and examine their own worldview, maybe see certain things from a different perspective because they're presented in an interesting situation that wouldn't normally happen. Even the story that didn't really work for me, which was the first story, The Tower of Babylon, which is kind of funny because that's a lot of people's favorite story, but I wasn't the biggest fan, but still I appreciated it because it gave a different perspective and it was a very unusual setting, to say the least. So, needless to say, I thought this was absolutely great, and I think this is a must-read for any science fiction fan. I ended up giving this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so close to 5 out of 5 for me, but that first story kind of knocked half a star down. But guys, if you know of any books or short story collections that are similar to this or explore similar themes, please let me know in the comments because, as I mentioned, I need more sci-fi like this in my life. The last book I finished in January, and unfortunately, my least favorite one, was We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. I did read this as part of the Year of Horror book club that was started by Chapter Stacks, and if you don't know about it, I will leave Katie's video announcement in the info box below so you can join if you would like. But yeah, I did not enjoy this book at all, but I am glad that I finally got around to reading it because I've been meaning to for a while now. If you haven't heard of the book or the movie, the story is told from the perspective of a mother whose child becomes a killer. This sounds like a spoiler, but it's not. You find out very early on in the book that this is what happens, and the story is really about the mother's relationship with her son and with her husband and how things end up the way they did rather than where they end up. Here's the thing, I have very low tolerance for bad parenting, and the parents in this book, they're pretty awful. The main character, Eva, who is the mother, and we are getting only her perspective in this novel because it's told through her letters to her husband. She's probably one of my least favorite characters I have ever encountered in a book. From the very beginning, she is obviously elitist and very judgmental, which is already off-putting. She decides to have this child on a whim and then quickly realizes that this is not for her because guess what? Being a mother is a huge life change. It's an adjustment. It involves a lot of responsibilities, and being a new parent is challenging. Who knew? She essentially decides that her child is evil from the moment he is born, and she treats him as such from that point on until this whole thing becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the other hand, her husband, Franklin, is so preoccupied with his idealized version of fatherhood that he is completely blind to all of the red flags that come up as Kevin is growing up. So with parents like that, I don't think this boy had any chance of growing up as a normal human being. Obviously, this book brings up this entire nature versus nurture debate, and it also is an interesting character study of this messed up parenting. So it does have a purpose, and it does require thinking, and it challenges the reader to consider these possibilities and whether Kevin was born that way or whether it was the parents. I think it was absolutely the parents. So it's not a bad book and it's not badly written. I just didn't enjoy anything about it. I probably wouldn't have finished it if it wasn't an audiobook that I was listening to, which is why I can't actually show you a physical copy because I listened to the audiobook. But yeah, if I was reading a physical book, I probably would have given up pretty quickly, or at least halfway through. And on top of everything, it's a bit long-winded, so I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars, and there's that. I did enjoy the movie a bit more than the book, and I think a lot of it has to do with Tilda Swinton's amazing performance. So even if you didn't like the book, I think you should still check out the movie, but yeah, that's gonna be a big no for the book for me. And that's it for what I read in January. As I mentioned, it was a bit of an odd reading month, and it's pretty obvious which book I enjoyed the most and which one I enjoyed the least. But let me know in the comments below what you read last month and what were your favorite and least favorite books at the beginning of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you with my movie and TV wrap up very soon. Bye!